So what's it like becoming a complete sort of like new age hippie, Chris?
Well, I don't know, man. You say hippie, I say tomatoes. You know, I mean, it's like I think if anything, it's the difference between like one time they didn't know what to call you, so they called you bohemian, and then they sort of narrow that down a little bit and they call you a beatnik, and then there's some bunch of people running around not bathing and shit in the '60s and they call themselves hippies, But I just think there's always been people on the planet who see things in a different sort of angle. I mean, really. I mean, people who call themselves hippies were the same people who think they invented getting high and that they were the first people who thought that killing other people was bad, Police, that's not a very novel concept. I mean, but yeah, I don't think that we're hippies. I've been telling people that we used to call what we are rock and roll people. That doesn't really hold the same context as it once did. So now we say that we're illegal people, as opposed to legal ones.
No, so in terms of the new record, I mean, to be serious for more than a split second at least.
All right.
I mean, it's a very different record from the first one. A lot of people have been saying like, the Black Crowes are carrying this flag and blah blah blah, and they're sort of on this rock crusade and all that. Most of it happening after the ZZ Top tour. But this record really does seem as though you're trying to make a point.
I think we are trying to make a point, but I don't really know what that point is, because that point that is your horizon all of a sudden passes you by like, welcome to, Arizona or whatever. So, I mean, I think there's a point to be made. I don't know where that stops and where it begins. I don't think there's really a message, because I think if we wanted to give people a message, then that would mean we want to manipulate people, and I don't want to manipulate people because you leave that up to governments and sort of religions and institutions like that. I don't really want to manipulate people. It's such a weird structure. One part of it is that we write songs and that we're a bunch of guys who like to get out on stage and just let it loose and feel free for about an hour and a half if that's what it is. But then these other aspects come into it where if you sell a few million records here and there, people want, hey, what's his opinion on this? What's his opinion on this? And I think a lot of, like Nirvana comes along and they're saying some things that are pretty relevant, because there's not, they're like I said, maybe in jest and a little tongue-in-cheek, but there are some lines to draw between legal people and illegal people, these institutions and this etiquette and these sort of traditions really ring false, it's sort of like a parody of itself at this point. And I don't think the Black Crowes want to be a parody of themselves, and I think all of that revolves around the music industry, as how easily it has become to make yourself disposable. And I don't find any romance in being disposable. That's trends, and trends are going to come and go and take them for what they are, but I don't want to come and go, I don't know what, but I know disposable is not a word that sounds like you're getting very much work done. It sort of sounds like, oh my God, I hope I make enough money that when I'm 38 I can get plastic surgery,
in terms of making a statement, what I was referring to really is about the fact it took you 8 days to record the record. It was like, well, records can still be made in the real way.
Yeah, I guess definitely that, or at least that's what it looks like now. I don't really know if at the time we sat around and said, okay, let's write these songs. Let's go make it in 8 days, and then we'll I think that's just, I can honestly say from what it means to be in the band and for what it means for me and Rich to write songs, that's what it turns into, you don't really, I can't categorize things and analyze them. But the question that comes up, if making a record in 8 days is something that is a statement, then the real statement to me is, why can't other people? The real statement to me is, if the Black Crowes put out Shake Your Moneymaker a couple years ago and it was an album's worth of songs, no singles really, an album, How come no one else has put out an entire album of music? And it doesn't matter if it's metal or whatever, these fucking borders that they put up, you know, like... I have a hard time sort of stabbing that on the table and saying, oh, look, you know, because it's running around everywhere. But you can sort of guess at it, and maybe that's my guesstimation right now, you know.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, the first album, I mean, do you really think there were no singles on that first record?
Well, I mean, I didn't think there was at the time. I mean, you know, it's like the other day I did an interview somewhere where the guy said, well, how did the Black Crowes deal with being so acceptable? And I said, hey, baby, there ain't nothing acceptable about being in the Black Crowes, man. I mean, just because we sell a few million records and we're on MTV, you want to call me acceptable, yeah? But you wouldn't have me over to your house, man, you know. So it's funny. I mean, you know, and then people say, were you surprised by the success? You know, I mean, how are you supposed to answer that? If I answer, yes, I was surprised, then I'm being sort of like, oh, man, I didn't know what I was doing. And if I, you know, I don't know if that's really it. But if I say no, then you're like this arrogant, egotistical sort of thing. But I just don't think being humble is something that you pull out of the hat just for the sake of being polite, you know. I mean, I didn't expect Shake Your Moneymaker to be what it came. But then again, in the same instance, I never thought being a failure was very cool, you know. I mean, if I'm going to write songs and go out and do it, we might as well go out and do it, you know. That's sort of where we come from.
Now, tell me about your lyrics and stuff, because, I mean, you pay a lot of attention to other people's lyrics. I mean, there's a hell of a lot of bands out there that, well, in fact, I mean, just watching you prance around the room upstairs, I know there's a hell of a lot of bands, you know, that you've listened to the lyrics very close.
Well, words are, I mean, look at how powerful words are, man. I mean, people are blowing themselves up and killing each other and mutilating each other constantly about this thing called the Bible, you know. It's a good book, man. You know, I don't think it's the best one they wrote yet, but I think it's pretty good, you know. But think about that. I mean, if you want to, I mean, that's such an obvious thing, you know. I mean, the power of words. I mean, I can only speak for my personal taste, you know. I mean, I really like people who sort of don't watch what they say. People who are not afraid to say, you know what, man, I'm scared, or my heart's been broken. In the same respect, you say, I have all the courage in the world, and that I broke someone's heart, and that hurts me, you know. I mean, it's such a yin yang, really, of thoughts, you know. I mean, but I guess, I mean, I've always been one of those freaks who sort of, like, rock and roll to me is about going to the gig with all your friends and jumping up and down and getting drunk and, you know, meeting a chick or whatever when you go to the show, right? You know, but when you go home and there's no one to jump up and down with, and maybe the drinks aren't flowing and there's no chicks to sort of flirt with, there has to be another dimension to it, you know. Maybe that means that it brings up your sorrows. Maybe it means that it makes you euphoric, or maybe it makes you feel like you're less alone, or maybe it makes you feel isolated. You know, I felt that way about lots of different sort of things that have come into my life, you know.
Well, before we get into the things that have come into your life, let's talk about the record that's going to come into everyone else's life for a tiny bit. I mean, first of all, the first track, I mean, Sting Me, I mean, as a title, it seems to be very personal, it seems to be very, you know, yeah, Sting Me. I mean, what about that track as a lyrical sort of...
I think that, I mean, Sting Me and No Speak No Slave on the record are really, to me, coming from the same motivations, you know. If you feel like a riot, best not deny it, you know. That's maybe saying something. I mean, I think the Sting Me is definitely a result of being on stage 350 nights and looking out at people, you know, and saying, man, if you want to tear this place up, ain't no one stopping you. Ain't me, you know. Maybe your parents don't want you to have a good time, and you know your government doesn't want you to have a good time, but as far as I'm concerned, you can come to Black Crowes show and do whatever you need to do, you know. I think that's part of it. I think a little bit of that song is dare, You know, I dare you, man. I dare you to really feel free for an hour and a half. I mean, that's all we're talking about. 2 hours, hour and a half. Ain't no one playing any 4-hour sets around here. I think that's what it's about. It's sort of a song that dares you to. I mean, if the song's going to open the record, that song's saying, are you ready for this? Because I'm giving it to you. I mean, you see so many performers these days, and you see so many bands who are about, do you love me? Give it to me. Do you love me? Tell me, man. Shower me with your praise. I don't like getting in the shower. And I think that's what the Black Crowes are, you know.
What about the next step for the band? I mean, what about the touring thing? What about, you know, the next few gigs and getting out there? And I mean, you spent a lot of time touring with the first record. Are you going to be a bit more selective this time around?
I hope not. I really don't. I mean, you know, one side of me also is like, well, we can talk about it. I mean, I really want people to like this record, you know? I really did. And we really did try to bring all of our experiences and, like, just, you know, this little pimple of creativity, you know? Like, you know, it's over in 8 days, and there it is. I hope you dig it. But the tour's already starting to, you know... I guess people in offices start planning that stuff pretty much in advance. It's called High's the Moon Tour. And it starts in Japan and Australia, New Zealand in June. And then we might be over here for some things. I'm not sure yet. I haven't really called the office lately. And we start in the States in July. But I'm sure, I mean, you know, we have a tour planned to come over here. I guess if anyone buys this record, they'll let us come. Or then again, if I get hit by a train, I guess we won't come.
One final question, though. I mean, since that first record and since the first time we met up and all that kind of thing, I mean, you know, obviously if you...
My love for you, you mean?
No, that aside, you know...
You mean my desire across the Atlantic for Phil Alexander?
Apart from that... Yeah, apart from
all you homophobic kids at home, I'm just kidding. I don't want to have sex with Phil.
That aside, I mean, in terms of the way you yourself as a person have perhaps matured, I mean, how do you feel about? I mean, you said, you know, you weren't ready to mellow out. You weren't ready to maybe hang up things right now. How do you feel as though you've changed over the last 2 years or so?
Wow. You know, it's weird, man. When I was 20, 19, 21, I never even thought about that I would even be at 25. And that's, you know, a lot of people, you tell them how old you are, and they go, well, let me tell you. I don't know. I mean, if anything, I really don't think I'm ready to even begin to think about my autobiography, you know? I think that, if anything, we're really just touching the tip of the iceberg of what we do. I mean, the only thing I can say is that I really hope that this band stays together, because it's this far away that we don't, you know? I mean, because we take it that seriously, you know? I mean, it's always so bad, too, because you come off in interviews as, you know, just blah, 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 letting everyone have it and pointing the finger, when that's, you know, that's not how we really are, you know? I mean, we're just goofy guys who like rock and roll music, and we like interesting conversations, we like to cop a buzz, we like going to the, you know, you're human beings, you know, remember? But I just really hope that the powers that be, and that's, I guess right now, the record companies, realize that they are not artists, and that they speak business man, and they speak lawyer man, and they speak accountant man, they speak warden, they speak customs officer, I speak musician, and I speak human being, and I speak American, you know, not necessarily in those orders. And that's a generalization about the record industry, you know, because there's people in it for the right reasons. But you have to make that generalization to make your point. I would really hate... Boom. That sound. I hate that sound. I mean, I would just really hate for those factions to be the thing that kills this band. But then again, I'm also really proud that I'm in a band who really does stick up for itself and its ethics, and that I am in a band that, when faced with ultimatums, I'll never play music again, because I don't do it for that. And everyone in the band comes from the exact same place, and everyone in the band knows that, because we see each other every day, man, and we laugh and have a drink. Why is it so hard to be the Black Crowes? Because it's good, and because if for one time, if a band did the right things, it's worth it, and I mean, that sounds really, sort of like, well, you can say that, no. But I'm serious, man. You don't, people, I love this band. It's the only thing I want to do. But if people mess with it too much, and we're not allowed to be ourselves, then I'm going to find something else to do. Because I don't do it for the same reasons. I do it for other reasons. And it's hard to sort of justify that because I don't know what they are. I wish I did, man. Maybe I wouldn't. But maybe if I ever figured out what they are, then we wouldn't have anything to write about.
Let alone talk about it. Right. Well, pretty much wraps up.